NFL Draft and Rookies. Hell yeah.
Podcast off the rails already.
But there is not a chance in hell Justin Fields is finishing in the top 10.
You know what, Mikey? Shut it.
He wants
Why
it.
not?
You don't want the smoke.
He's Calvin Johnson. He's Calvin Johnson.
Good.
Oh,
God.
my
Yes,
God.
yes, and yes. You know, just it adds a little extra flavor to the podcast.
I think you're disrespecting David Njoku.
Thank God for Joe Flacco. That's all I can say. I'll help the owners. Don't draft Kadarius Toney.
I have to give the people what they want. I mean, come on. I'm going to milk it. I'm going to milk it for all it's worth.
I'll give you something to milk.
Let's rock and roll.
All right, what's going on, MHA owners? It's July 24th, and we have only 43 days until the first NFL game of the 2024 season when the defending Super Bowl champs, the Kansas City Chiefs, take on the Baltimore Ravens. You're listening, of course, to the MHA podcast. I'm Eric Lansing, along with Mikey Renault, and, of course, the MHA defending champion, Todd Diamond.
Champ is here.
What's up,
Hey,
fellas? How we doing? How's the fantasy research going these days, Todd?
It's going good. You know, those mock drafts have been my best friend. You know, I just been doing those, at least one every night. And,
Every night?
Almost every night, yeah.
So what are we learning when you're doing it every night? Are you picking the same players? Are you trying different players at different spots? What is the theory when you go up and do that type of stuff?
For a minute, I was almost doing the same thing for the first two picks, running back, and then wide receiver. But now the last few I've done running back, wide receiver, then another wide receiver, then a running back, and so forth. So I've been switching it up a little bit.
Back to my original question to Mikey. How's your research going?
Oh, boy. I need a drink.
Yeah.
Really well. Yeah, I mean, I was excited once we got out of the Rookies podcast to get down to, better players. And so dove in really deep on these quarterbacks, and I'm raring to go.
Yeah, it should be good. We have, we've all looked at each other's rankings, and we have some varying rankings amongst these quarterbacks. So it should be fun to kind of go through there. Before we get to all that, let's get into some news.
I don't understand what the news is. It's just like, hey, here's a bunch of you can't fix that happened that was horrible.
Not a ton of news, and obviously there's all kinds of news with people, little slight bumps and bruises here and there, but I'm just going to mention some of the top ones that stood out to me today. This one actually a couple days ago, Matt Stafford on the field. It looked like he might have, I think he got in on time. It looked like he was going to hold out. He was trying to renegotiate his contract. He wanted more guaranteed money, and they gave it to him. The story I was reading was saying, well, Jimmy Garoppolo may be hurt for the first two games, so they wanted to make sure that he took care of Matt Stafford. Okay, so Matt Stafford got some extra guaranteed money. He's happy. He's back at training camp. Unfortunate news for Nick Chubb, the Browns running back, placed on the physically unable to perform list. Now, that can mean he can come back pretty much any time, but he had a big injury last year, 2 surgeries, tore his ACL and MCL, and also did some damage to his left knee. So we're still not sure when he's going to come back. So this isn't really news, but it's just something if you're not sure what's going on with Nick Chubb. That's what we know so far. Another running back, Saints running back, Kendre Miller. He was a 3rd-round pick for the squad last year. Hurts his hamstring in practice. He has dealt with all kinds of injuries in his first 2 NFL seasons. Tough to see the Saints. Obviously, Kamara's there. He's not going to jump in. He hasn't had an opportunity to really show off his stuff. Just, I think, under 200 yards rushing 1 year ago. But doesn't look like he's going to be able, at least in the certain future, to try to figure things out. And then I'm not big on this type of news, but I guess it's Bronco news. But Javonte Williams handling first team reps today, and everybody's saying he's looking good, looking sharp. He was able to play 16 games last year after coming off 2 torn knee ligaments in 2021. So obviously there's a lot of speculation on what's going on and who's going to start and they're talking about P-Ryan might even make the team. We'll figure all that out as we go along. But that's what I've seen. Any news that you guys have that maybe fantasy owners would want to know about?
Jordan Love said, I mean, obviously he's at Packers training camp, but he says he won't participate until he gets a new deal.
So he is not out there practicing, huh?
He's just there. He's there. He's out on the field, but he's not doing anything. Like, he's still going to the meetings and doing everything, but he's just not participating in any of the drills and stuff like that. So take that for whatever it's worth. I mean, I'm assuming they'll get a deal done. I mean, obviously Jordan loves the future, so you're going to have to pay him. It just depends on how much you think he's worth. If he's worth just Justin Herbert, or, Tua hasn't even got paid yet. So that's going to be interesting there. But he's there. He's just not participating in any of the drills.
Okay, man, that's good news. I'm glad you saw that. I did not see that, so good job.
Well, and the other thing is just CeeDee Lamb, which he's not going to show up until he gets his extension.
Okay, yeah, I didn't see that either. So that's big news for sure. I mean, I know he was not happy, or he was looking for a new deal, but I didn't hear that he wasn't showing up. So some things for fantasy owners to keep an eye on, because sometimes we see these things go into the season, and then CeeDee Lamb may not be a highly touted first round pick. But we'll see if they figure things out. They also got to pay Michael Parsons and Dak Prescott, so a lot of money being thrown around, or that may or may not be thrown around in Dallas. We'll see. All right, let's get into this quarterback preview edition. Of course, quarterbacks, huge for us here in this league. It sets our league apart. I think that's why it's always tough to do mock drafts or look at people's rankings, because our quarterback scoring system is a little different, because we do it by point per completion. Now, there's also fractional scoring. Mikey, give our owners a little update on how fractional scoring affects quarterbacks.
Pretty simple. I mean, you're still going to get 1 point for every completion, 6 points for a touchdown, -2 for every INT. The only difference is you're going to get 0.04 for every yard. So it'll still total out to 1 point for every 25 yards passing. It's just you're getting that extra 0.04 bump for every single yard.
And isn't that what we want as a society? More fantasy points?
Yes.
Mikey's all about it, I know for sure.
Yeah.
I'm still on the fence. We'll see how it goes this year. All right. So let's get into it. 2024 quarterbacks. But let's look back on 2023 quarterbacks and how they finished in the top 12 1 year ago. I thought about doing this as MHA trivia, but if I know Mikey, he's got all those stats in front of him, so I'm not going to ask that for MHA trivia. So here's how they finished in 2023. Josh Allen led the way with 819 points. Dak Prescott finished in second with 810, the only two quarterbacks that had 800-plus points. How about Jared Goff finishing third overall at 747 points? Jordan Love at number 4 with 742 points. 2 points behind him, Jalen Hurts in the 5 spot. Patrick Mahomes, a guy we were super highly touted on 1 year ago, but for obvious reasons, 722 points. Had a little bit of a down season. We'll talk about that. Tua finished 7th, 701 points. And then we go to the 600s. Number 8, Baker Mayfield, 680. Sam Howell, 675. He's in 9th place. Lamar Jackson finishing 10th at 671. Trevor Lawrence finished 11th overall amongst quarterbacks at 662 points. And Derek Carr in the top 12 with 658 points. And so, Mikey, I'm going to ask you this quick question here. You guys see these type of quarterbacks, Sam Howell, Derek Carr in the top 12. Can you guys give me one reason why we saw those two in the top 12? There's more than one answer, but I'm looking for a specific one. But, Mikey, tell me why those two ended up into the top 12.
Injuries.
Thank you so much. That is on the money. And so that's where our MHA trivia comes in today.
Time to play the game. Time to play the game.
So I don't know if this is like the best trivia to do, but I'm going to ask it anyway. So I have on my list 8 quarterbacks that were injured and missed significant time from one season ago. And this is just more of information for our owners. But whoever can name 4 first wins the game. If somehow you both end up with 4, because you both picked the right 4 each time, then I have a bonus question here. So we obviously know Todd's not the best at MHA trivia. So I'm going to let him go first. So Todd, give me one of the quarterbacks that was significantly injured that made a difference last year.
Joe Burrow.
Joe Burrow. That is I gotta get used to doing all these sound effects again. Oh, it hit it twice for some reason. I don't know how that happened. And why is it still going? Oh, wow. I must have it on loop. Okay, good job. Yeah, he missed 7 games from 1 year ago. Obviously, he was dealing with kind of the ankle situation or the calf situation last year and then got hurt. Something about his hand. I'd have to go back and look, but that made him miss the rest of the season. I had him last year. Very frustrating, although he was pretty amazing when he was in. All right, your turn, Mikey. Give me a quarterback that missed a ton of time last year.
All right. How about that douchebag Aaron Rodgers?
Oh, yeah. There you go.
Douche.
Aaron Rodgers. How many games did he miss, Todd? As the guy who drafted him last year.
He missed 15 games, No, sorry. 16 games. There we go.
Yeah, he played 1 snap.
Yeah.
Poor guy.
Played
poor
one.
guy.
One.
But yeah, he missed. There was a lot of hype with him coming in last year, and he did not get an opportunity. Saw a lot of it in Hard Knocks, but did not see him on the field very much. All right, Todd, back to you.
Matthew Stafford.
Matt Stafford. I do not have him on my list. I don't know. I don't think he missed that much time. I mean, he played in 15 games. That's probably not a significant amount. Mikey, back to you.
I'm going to go with that douchebag Deshaun Watson.
How many douchebags are there?
Douchebag.
He's definitely one of them. He missed 11 games a year ago. So a ton from a guy that had, plenty of weapons. I wasn't super high on him last year, but he's a reason why some of those guys like Sam Howell ended up into the top 12. Back to you, Todd. Mikey's up 2-1.
Kyler Murray.
Kyler Murray. That is correct. He missed 7 games, and he was coming off that ACL tear from 2 years ago. Came in late in the season, showed some sparks, but he missed some big time minutes or time last year. So well done, Todd. You tie things up at 2 apiece. Back to you, Mikey.
I'm going to go with the guy I'm sure we're going to talk about today, and that's Anthony Richardson.
Anthony Richardson. That is correct. He missed 13 games. The rookie from last year showed some potential early in those 4 games, but unfortunately he dealt with a couple of injuries, but a major one. It took him out for the rest of the year. Mikey is up 3-2. Back to you, Todd.
Bryce Young.
Bryce Young. I don't think I have him on my list. If I go back, I'm not talking to the mic, so I apologize. No, he played 16 games last year. Back to you, Mikey. You can win the game with it here, with an answer correct here.
Come on, Todd. You didn't get Kirk Cousins? That was like, I was trying to leave that one out there. It's like...
Yep, good job. Kirk Cousins, 9 games he missed. Obviously, those Justin Jefferson owners. Cousins was the number 1 guy, and in terms of points total points before he got hurt, and he'll be someone huge that we'll talk about. So well done, Mikey. You win MHA trivia again.
And I'm disappointed in Todd because he said he was watching Hard Knocks earlier.
That's right, Daniel Jones. He missed 11 games. And the only other guys, one other guy, and 4 games isn't huge, but it was enough for. He was so highly touted, and 4 games. Obviously, there was a lot of... we'll talk about Justin Herbert as we go along. I'll ask the bonus question just because I have it here. Which quarterback led the position in turnovers last year? You guys know? Anybody can answer.
I'll let Todd go first. I have a guess, but I'll let Todd go first.
He led in turnovers. I'll say Trevor Lawrence.
Todd Diamond is correct.
That was going to be my guess too, because he fumbled so much.
That guy had 21 total, 14 interceptions, and 7 fumbles. We'll talk about Trevor Lawrence, I think, on this show. Let's get into it. Quarterbacks previews. All right, quarterbacks preview. There you go. I'll start with Mikey here. I asked you guys a very kind of vague question, so I don't know what kind of answer I'm going to get, but I'm excited to hear what you guys came up with. So the question I ask is, what is the state of the quarterback position in 2024? So you can answer any way you want to. Mikey, go for it. The state of quarterback position this season.
I actually think it's a little bit deeper than it's been. We have a lot of youth coming up that has turned out to be, pretty good, with the likes of Jordan Love and CJ Stroud and
Yeah,
whatever you
yeah.
whatever you think of, like guys like Trevor Lawrence. And yeah, I mean, I was getting a little bit worried there for a few years because wasn't that deep at all, but it's starting to get a little bit deeper.
I agree. Just looking over, there's excitement there, and there's guys in fantasy wise and NFL real life type of stuff that think, man, this is cool stuff. This is fun. We have like this full crop of guys. It's not like I know Mikey is probably a little more picky the last couple of years. I would say, I don't know if that's the right word, but Mike's like these 5 quarterbacks and no one else. Everybody else is garbage. But I feel like there's some upside and there's some guys that could do some things. What do you think, Todd, the state of quarterback this season?
Well, I do agree. Yes, influx of young quarterbacks definitely helps in reality and in fantasy. The upside, and we talk about ceilings. It's like, and we were talking about before we got on the podcast of baseball. When it comes to ceiling for players, and no different in the NFL. You definitely feel a little bit more optimistic and more excited about either waiting for a quarterback, because it seems like quarterbacks is a little bit deeper this year, and there was a lot of promise last year with some of these young quarterbacks, whether it was the beginning of the season or the middle or the end, whatever the case may be. You definitely feel a little bit good going into the draft, knowing, okay, I can really seriously think about waiting on a quarterback because there are so many good quarterbacks with really good upside that shown a lot of flashes last year. And you could maybe wait to the maybe the 8th or 9th round maybe, and draft one of these young quarterbacks, and then just fill up on whether it's a lot of good wide receivers, or, I mean, when we get to the running back show, that'll be a different conversation. But
Who is your guys' number one quarterback heading into 2024? A couple of us have the same gentleman, and then one person not the same gentleman. So I'll just read this off here. Todd, his top guy is Patrick Mahomes. You want to give me some thoughts on why you picked him as your top overall quarterback heading into this season?
just because we talk about consistency with quarterbacks, and Patrick Mahomes, not every single year has ended up as the number one, fantasy, QB by any means, but he's just consistent enough where, he can get you know, 50 to 60 points, a week, and you just feel comfortable because you know what you're getting from him. There's no surprises. There's no, like, oh, I don't know what's going to happen because he doesn't have a lot of good wide receivers, but he still has Travis Kelce, but he still makes do and still puts up, like I said, 50 to 60 points a week. So you just feel comfortable. It's almost like if you put him in you put him in the heyday with Peyton Manning and Tom Brady and Drew Brees. Patrick Mahomes would be in there with the consistency of those 3 quarterbacks, because that's how good Patrick Mahomes is. So that's why I picked him as the number one quarterback.
Mikey, you didn't have Patrick Mahomes as your number one quarterback. You have him as number 2. Is there something about Mahomes that gives you pause to put him at number 1?
I wouldn't say gives me pause.
I mean, we're nitpicking. We're nitpicking at 1 and 2.
Yeah, I mean, he did have a down year last year. I think a lot of that was, Kansas City led the league in drops. They had 44 on the season. Kelce was banged up, which didn't help him any. And I like the moves that they brought in, bringing in speed with Worthy and the rookie plus Hollywood Brown. I just happen to like one quarterback better than him. It's not a knock being number 2.
No, and I'm not telling you. I didn't say why'd you knock him. Yeah, I mean, I love that the drop stat. I had that on my list as well, and they got rid of those 2 guys that were the heavy culprits of those drops. So I think that's going to help out a ton. And kind of going back to Todd, I mean, he's one of the best. Last year he finished 2 years ago, Last year he finished sixth. 2 years ago he finished fourth. 2022 he finished first. Finished third before that. So I think there's just something to consistency. Same coach that's going to put him in the best position. The offensive line was not its best, had dealt with some injuries, but the weapons are still there. And I'm if we're maybe that's the safe pick by me, but let's hear with Mikey and who your number one quarterback is for this season.
All right, I had Joe Burrow at number 1, and he says he's fully healthy. Todd's gonna love this one because I played this into factoring this in that both of his top receivers and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins are in contract.
Ooh,
Years where they're looking for extension. So
chip on the
there's
shoulder.
Yep, there's chip on the shoulder for both of them. Joe Mixon being gone, that is gonna mean that they're probably gonna throw the ball even more. And when you think about prior to last year when he got hurt, in the 2 previous seasons, he had combined for 69 touchdowns in those 2 years. The problem with Joe Burrow hasn't been Joe Burrow. It's been the Bengals offensive line. Like they have got to keep him upright. And I think that they, in the offseason, they made moves to hopefully try and do that. First round draft pick was the big 6'7" tackle out of Georgia, Marius Mims. They brought in Trent Brown, another tackle, to hopefully help with that. Realistically, if he's healthy for a full 17 games, I honestly could see Joe Burrow, hitting, possible 5,000 yards, 40 touchdown season. No joke.
And Zach Moss is a pretty good pass catcher in his own right. Yeah. So it wouldn't just be relegated to those guys. Yeah, I mean, I love all of that stuff. I have the same thing. Trent Brown was a huge signing, the big Mims guy. And the thing that I love that Joe Burrow does is his completion percentage is one of the best in the league. 68% career completion percentage. He led the league in 2021 with just over 70%. So he's a pretty efficient guy too. And, when he finished second overall back in 2022, he had 5 rushing touchdowns. Obviously, with his calf hurt last year, it slowed him down for the whole season. So if he even puts up a couple of rushing touchdowns on top of that, yeah, he could easily skyrocket to the top. So I'm not opposed to see when I saw Burrow there. I just thought it was funny you put Burrow because when we were talking at Buffalo Wild Wings, I don't know about him with Jamar Chase and blah, 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 based because we were talking about Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, but that's a conversation we'll have that'll be a fun conversation to have during the wide receivers episode. Okay, so Patrick Mahomes, that's who I had. I kind of mentioned what I thought about him. Todd and Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow to Mikey. We mentioned that Mikey had Patrick Mahomes at number 2. Todd and I had Josh Allen number 2. However, someone didn't have Josh Allen in their top 10. Ooh. So a little bit different than what we've seen in the past. So I'm just going to let Mikey take over here and talk about his 11th ranked Josh Allen heading into 2024.
Okay. Well, you got to hear me out on this.
He's cracking his fingers. He's taking a sip of his whiskey. He's ready to roll with this. I know he is.
Because this has everything to do with the coordinator change and the fact that they lost Stephon Diggs. I am going to give you some stats, and you tell me, because I'm sure you guys probably did not realize the drop-off when the coordinator shift happened. So this,
I mean, yes. I don't want to interject too much, but yeah, because of the way the running went up last year.
It wasn't just that.
His pass attempts went down and the running went up. But what else is? Keep going.
So yeah, just I'm going to give you a stat line. So this is Josh Allen's average statistics before the coordinator change. So he was, 25 for 36. That's, 25 completions on 36 attempts was his average. He was throwing at a 71% completion percentage, 269 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. After the change, for the final 8 games of the season, he was averaging 19 completions on 31 attempts. His completion percentage went down from 71 to 59. His yards per game went down to 235. He was only averaging 1 touchdown a game. And yeah, his rushing statistics went up, but I mean that you combine that with Stephon Diggs going away, Buffalo started to play at a much slower pace, and I think that was intentional. The statistics I just gave you after the change, what that looks like to me is a much less efficient Lamar Jackson. And for me, I don't think that that's going to change because they were winning football games doing it that way. Like their record completely changed. They played way better with him running more and passing less. Like I think that this is going to be a season where, I mean, you have Josh Allen up in your rankings, but I don't see any way possible that he's going to be able to live up to that.
Todd, you want to say something?
Well, I mean, yes, losing Stephon Diggs is definitely is a big, it's a big hit to the Bills team in general, and obviously to Josh Allen because it's the best target. But I just think he's going to have to do more anyway. Again, they're going to ask him to do more, and yes, I mean Curtis Samuel and then Coleman. Obviously Coleman's a rookie. Or Samuel has his moments, so it's obviously the weapons don't exactly, scream like, "Oh, this is going to be great."
They don't exist.
Yeah, don't exist. Now, obviously, the tight end situation might, because I was reading something that it might lean on the 2 tight ends a little bit. So see how that goes. I mean, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but I just think again, Josh Allen's going to have to do a lot, plain and simple.
He is. You know what's going to happen? He's going to get hurt because he's going to be the one that has to pick up all these third downs. He's going to be the one that has to score the touchdowns. It's
yeah, and I know well, and obviously you hope if anything that James Cook maybe really turns that corner and really steps up and helps with the running game, and then Josh Allen doesn't have to get those tough third downs. I mean, obviously, James Cook is not the biggest running back in the world. He's more, I mean, he'll outrun you. There's no doubt about that. But the fact of the matter is, you might have to lean on that running game a little bit more too as well. And yes, and Josh Allen's going to have to throw the ball maybe 50, 60 times a game, which again, fantasy purposes, fantastic. But I still think Josh Allen, this can still get it done, for fantasy purposes, and at least get you, like I said, maybe 40 to 50 points, a week and feel comfortable, at that pace. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. You lose Diggs. That's a bit. I think we can all agree. That was. I mean that was a huge blow to the Buffalo Bills. But see what Josh.
Well, I would say it's a huge blow for fantasy owners. I think the Bills wanted to get rid of him, and so did Josh Allen. I think there's, for whatever, how many stories you believe in or see that that Josh Allen was trying to squeeze him out, that he wasn't throwing it. And Mikey could tell you firsthand that he did not get the ball that much in that second half of the season and possibly cost Mikey a championship. Because he was right. At the beginning of the season, he was tearing it up, and Diggs was one of the best top 3-4 wide receivers in terms of fantasy. And then they get Joe Brady, who came over from, I think he came over from Carolina, if I'm not mistaken.
No, the Giants.
Was he with the Giants before that? Because he was with LSU during the Joe Burrow days. And from what I read, that he used Ken Dorsey was the previous Buffalo Bills offense coordinator. And then he used his playbook because I don't know if he didn't have enough time to create his own or implement the system because it was too late. So I don't know if that changes how the offensive looks going into this season. I think Mikey's right in the regard that less is more for the Buffalo Bills but hurts fantasy owners. Like they're trying to win football games, they're trying to win a Super Bowl, and for Josh Allen to have to throw 500 times, is that in their best interest? They started winning late in the season, although they didn't get as far as they wanted in the playoffs. So the only thing I'll say about Josh Allen is that he's an elite of an elite quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it hurts not to have Diggs there, but there's something about Josh Allen, and whether his rushing touchdowns, I mean, he had 15 rushing touchdowns last year. Maybe that doesn't change, and so that's going to help him a ton in that regard. Maybe he's not going to have 385 completions again. Maybe he's not going to have 4,300 yards passing, but I think the thing that I would like to see Allen do is cut down on the turnovers. His turnovers seem to be going up every year, which is not something you want to see as a fantasy owner. We just talked about Trevor Lawrence. He's not too far behind in some of that. But go ahead,
I'm
Todd.
just saying, in this league, we know completions win games.
Yeah, it's huge, especially when you're trying to get to those 50-point games.
True. So is Josh Allen like, just the example, obviously for fantasy purposes, is Josh Allen like Ben Roethlisberger in some cases where
not anymore? Like I said, I think they turned him into Lamar Jackson.
But Roethlisberger,
Allen's not going to rush for 1,000 yards. Let's not.
No, I agree with you. But
Lamar Jackson in comparison, and I still think he's a better passer than Lamar Jackson too.
Is he a better? Okay, because I was just saying with
a better arm, but he's more reckless.
Yeah, that's because Roethlisberger was reckless too.
I see Mikey's point. I still think Josh Allen is an elite quarterback, but we'll see if things change as they go along. I mean, maybe is that a board bet that you guys want to put together? Todd and I say he's a top 10 quarterback, and Mikey says no.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like I put him at 11 out of respect. I feel like he should be lower.
Well, there you go. That's our first board bet. Okay, let's keep going here. Mikey, you have Dak at 3, just like I do. Todd has been 8. Tell me why you like Dak.
Here you go, Todd. Another contract here.
I love it.
But I mean, how much is it effective? CeeDee Lamb's not on the pitch. I'm in soccer mode with work on the field.
I'm doing this based on the fact that I think CeeDee Lamb will be on the field. Okay. Dak is just a volume-based passer, and he's got a really safe floor. Like when he plays, I mean, his numbers last year were pretty much identical to what it was, 2021 when he was fully healthy. I think he has the safest floor pretty much of any quarterback if healthy. Like he's going to give you 400 plus completions. He's going to give you 4,500 yards. He's going to give you 30 touchdowns. They have absolutely no run game, so they're going to be throwing in the red zone. Like
throw.
Yeah, there's nothing not to like about him. He's about as safe as it gets.
I agree, honestly. I mean, he has his moments, but everything says throw. And I want all of those pieces because with Zeke and Dowdle, however you pronounce that running back's name, they have nothing at running back. I don't care. I mean, Zeke is way past his prime. They didn't draft one. They put themselves in a tough position. They weren't willing to spend up to get anybody in. And so it's probably going to be Dak Prescott also leading the team in rushing this year, which could be a good thing, but we've also seen him get some injuries as well. Let's keep going here on the show. I asked you guys, Jared Goff. He finished 3rd overall last season. Can he do it again, Todd? I'm looking at your list of Jared Goff, and you have him at 12, so you say no.
No, I think he's going to have a little bit of, regression, just a little bit. I mean, obviously, there's just so much high expectations. Yes, the offense is high-powered, but, I think he might just have a little bit of regression, a little bit. I think, teams are going to kind of hone in a little bit on him, and they're going to do everything they can to kind of stop him. And he's still going to put up big numbers, but I don't know. I think there's going to be some games now, because now everybody's like, oh well, the Lions are the Lions are actually good, and they actually matter. So sometimes too that changes the dynamic a little bit. When you're just trying to shock the world or trying to get back onto it, it's a little different. So that's why I have him, I have Purdy and Murray in front of him.
That's ridiculous.
I know it is.
I think the thing with Goff, and I don't want to spend too much time because we have so many to catch up on. Nothing changes. They have arguably the best offensive line in the league. They scored 30 points 11 times. Jamison Williams is only getting better. They bring everybody back. So why wouldn't he be able to put up top numbers again? I hear what you're saying, but if you're good, you're good. It doesn't matter who's. I mean, people know that the Bills and the 49ers and all those teams have been good for years. And if you have a good enough team, it's not going to matter. And they build in the trenches, which is so huge. He had 5 games of 25 plus attempts. So those completions are probably going to be up there again. Are we wrong,
Yeah.
Miguel?
No, I mean, I agree. And I think he can finish up there. For me, I put Jared Goff is another one of he's a safe guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he doesn't, guys I put over him, I think offer more upside than he does. Like Goff is going to get you completions. He's going to get you yards. He's never really had a big touchdown season. And that's because he is not efficient in the red zone. You know, he only threw at 56% completion percentage inside of the red zone, which was one of the lower marks in the NFL. That's why the Lions had 87 rushing attempts inside the 20
That's
between
just it. Yeah.
Gibbs and Montgomery, because
They're balanced offense.
Goff is better in between the 20s than he is, down close. So
Yeah, if you have a balanced offense, you're not going to get 40 touchdowns. Dak could get 40 touchdowns, 50 touchdowns, depending on how much he has to throw. But so, yeah, his upside is limited in that regard, not to mention he's not going to rush for any touchdowns himself either. All right, keeping it going here, blah, blah, blah. What do we have here? Jordan Love. It's a tough start for him last year, still incredibly young, but springboarded a big second half in 2023 to a 4th overall finish. Mikey, you have him 7th. Give me some of your thoughts on the Green Bay quarterback.
I mean, there's no doubt that he was so good in that second half. Like, it was almost like he was guaranteed to get you 2 or 3 touchdowns every game. The problem with that is I don't know if he's going to be able to keep it up. I hope he does, but this is where, maybe Todd's going to get a little upset. Like, he almost had to do that. Like, Aaron Jones was so bad. Like, A.J. Dillon was so bad. Like,
how dare you besmirch Aaron Jones on this show? How dare you?
I mean, they weren't even trying to run the ball in the red zone. They weren't even trying. Aaron Jones had 0 touchdowns the second half of the year when Jordan Love went on that run. A.J. Dillon had 1. So they were just throwing the ball. They're like, their best running back was Jaden Reed. He had 2 touchdowns. That's what's so funny about it. I think they're trying to fix that. That's why they brought in Josh Jacobs instead of
I was just going to ask, if they bring in Josh Jacobs, does that slow his offensive progression down at all?
Maybe a little bit. And they also brought in the 3rd-round pick, Marshawn Lloyd. So they're trying to, I think, become more of a balanced offense. We'll see if it works. I mean, but at least like that first year, man, he showed a lot of promise. So, I mean, that's why I have him as number 7.
Yeah, last 8 games, as you mentioned, was great. 260 pass yards per game, 18 touchdowns, 1 interception, and 70% completion percentage. That's what gets me excited. If you can pass at an efficient rate, it's going to go such a long way. He was also fantastic in that Dallas playoff game, in Dallas, no less. So you hope he's got that swagger to go with him, and I really like his weapons as well. Todd also liked him. He had him ranked 5th. I have him 7th, and Mikey also had him 7th. Still rolling along here. This is going to be a fun one to talk about. Justin Herbert. In terms of our rankings, Todd is definitely the highest on him. He has him at 9th. I wouldn't say I was high on him, but I'm definitely lower on him and have him ranked exactly where Mikey has him as 18th. So Todd, 9th for Justin Herbert. Give us some of your thoughts and why you still think he could be a top 10 quarterback this season.
Well, obviously, I mean, the weapon situation's not the greatest. I mean, even with Calvin Johnson there, just kidding. I just think, obviously he's gone through a lot of coaches and that sometimes, it affects the quarterback. But I think bringing in Harbaugh, that, it kind of shows a coach that, that really knows what he's doing and so forth. But for Herbert, he's going to have to throw the ball a lot. He's going to have to he's going to, just like with the situation with Dak, he's going to have to throw. Because the running back situation's not the best, because the running backs they got, Edwards and who else? I can't think of the running back they got, but and it's going to depend on too. Quentin Johnson can step up as well. I mean, that's going to be probably the number one target, most likely, and that's why I have him ranked as high as I do at 9, and he's going to have to throw the ball a lot. He's just too talented not to, to make it work, regardless of the weapons around him. I think he's that good where he can do more with less.
Before I let Mikey chime in, because I know we've had this we talked about this conversation just amongst us, so I know what Mikey's going to say, and I figure you probably know what he's going to say. But last year, Todd, all these weapons, some of them missed time to injury, but he had all these weapons and still finished only 18th. Yes, he missed some time with a broken hand, but he still wasn't a good fantasy quarterback last year. And maybe Mikey can tell me if I think Mikey, you had Herbert last year, right?
I did.
So he can be explain more better than I do, but I still don't think he was even a good quarterback despite all that. And so now so much changes for him this year, and you still feel incredibly confident that he's going to put up the top 10 numbers.
Yep.
Okay. He feels confident. Mikey, do you want to say anything real quick?
Well, their offensive line wasn't good last year either. That wasn't helping them. But I'm gonna let I'm gonna throw just one stat out there. I'm gonna let the fantasy owners decide for themselves after I read it. I'm sure you know what it's gonna be. I had talked to you guys about Harbaugh bringing in offensive coordinator Greg Roman, and he's been an offensive coordinator in other places. And I'm gonna read off the numbers of where each of his teams has ranked in passing attempts. It's 31, 31. 32, 29, 31, 32, 32, 32, and 28. So
those are some numbers that are down near the bottom.
Yeah. So if that leaves you to believe that they're going to throw, then you're not paying attention to history.
You can go against history, Mikey. You can write a different story.
But Todd, yeah. I mean, you watch more Michigan games than we do. You even said they run the ball more than anybody.
Yeah, but
why are they going to bring him in and then say, "Sorry, coach, you're going to have to pass more"? They brought him in because they figured he knew how to win games, and if winning games is by running the ball, that's what they're going to do, right?
Well, they're going to have a reality shock when all their running backs get hurt, so Justin Herbert's going to have to throw the ball.
I don't think anybody's going to argue that point because they brought in Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins, and they're both injury prone.
Yeah. So,
however, they're going to do what they're going to run their system.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Justin Herbert there might be a time we'll see him, kind of. When it comes down to it, they have to drive down the field or they have to win a game. I think we'll see that script change just a little bit, and they'll try to. I mean, yeah, they'll who knows? They'll stick to the script of trying to run the ball and and trying to find a good balance of running and throwing it. But if there's going to be times where they have to win a game, I think Harbaugh is going to go like, all right, Herbert, go win us the game. But
this is again where we're confusing fantasy with reality. So if they're playing a close game and he has to try and win it at the end of the game with throwing, what about the rest of the game?
I hope they run if anything, that hopefully the rest of the game will be that balance of a balance where you feel like Justin Herbert can get you. Like I said, you can feel comfortable with 45 to 50 points from Herbert at least, and then there's games
he's getting 45 to 50 points a game. We're board betting it, and you better draft him.
Okay.
Are we putting together a board bet right now? 50 plus points per game? Is that where we're going, Todd?
Sure, why not?
Oh my gosh! So you're
Todd. Bet I've ever made in my life.
So you're saying he's going to average 50 points per game?
I said 45 to 50 points. So
okay, right around I'll give you the low. I'll give you the low.
I'll take it.
Do you want 45 plus?
Yes.
Okay, so there you go. Todd says Justin Herbert's going to average 45 plus fantasy points per game. Mikey says no. I'm going to join the Mikey on that train. We'll keep going here. CJ Stroud finished 14th, but of course he had a little bit of a slow start to the season and was incredible. Offensive Rookie of the Year, 8th in MVP voting. He had 6 games of 25-plus completions, 10 games with 250-plus yards. We all feel pretty high, so we're not going to spend too much time on C.J. Stroud. But, Mikey, give me some of your thoughts on this gentleman who kind of came in and was the 2nd overall pick behind Bryce Young, but he was the one that made the waves last year.
Yeah, I mean, he had over 4,000 yards in his rookie season.
Yeah.
I just like the moves that they've made. Like, they see an opportunity, and they're going after it, adding a Diggs, adding a Joe Mixon. Tank Dell will be back. Like, they see they have a young quarterback who is really special. And I think he needs to improve on his efficiency. But, I mean, I see a team and I see a quarterback that has all the potential in the world, and he just has to take advantage of it.
Yep, offensive line dealt with a ton of injuries. He was sacked 8th most in the league last year, but they should be, from what I read, they're all healthy and the entire starting unit is back. So that's obviously going to be huge in terms of continuity. The one thing I'll say for CJ Stroud, they have one of the hardest schedules. They face 5 division champs, 7 playoff teams, and 11 teams with winning records. Now, obviously that, the 11 team with winning record things are going to change because, teams that were good last year aren't going to be good this year. But just going based on the schedule of how these teams did last year, that looks like a gauntlet of things to go. Let's go. So one of the questions I asked is, out of these young quarterbacks, who do you think will prove to be the most fantasy worthy? Anthony Richardson, Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams. Todd, who did you pick out of that group?
Caleb Williams. I think Caleb Williams
you have Caleb Williams 20th, if for those that matter. I have him 19th. Mikey has him 17th. Go ahead.
So I think Caleb Williams, out of those 3, I mean, obviously, I have Jaden Daniels, right below him, and Richardson way below. Just more of the injury thing that kind of scares me a little bit. But Caleb Williams, like I said, we talked about it on the rookie show. Caleb Williams is I think he's I won't say he's a once in a generation, but he's a special quarterback, and I think he's gonna have the most fantasy value out of those 3, and probably out of all the rookie quarterbacks coming into the season. Just how good he is, because obviously he's in a great position. The Bears put great weapons around him, and especially for a rookie quarterback, that helps. And and obviously for fantasy purposes, that's going to be phenomenal, because he's going to have all those weapons to throw to. And obviously, he's still going to go through his, rookie lumps. That's just the way it is. I mean, college game's different than the NFL. We all know that. But Caleb Williams will probably be the best out of those 2 other quarterbacks.
Mikey, do you want to mention anything about these 3?
Well, I think it should be Anthony Richardson. My problem is he needs to learn how to protect himself. Like, he ran into those injuries. Like, 3 times he had to be taken out of games because he doesn't slide and he doesn't run out of bounds. I mean, he is a special talent. I mean, you can see it when you watch it, and that's why it should be him. I'm with Todd, worrying about the injury risk, and if he doesn't get down.
Yeah, I'm way higher than you guys for sure. I have him ranked 14th, Mikey 23rd, Todd 26th. I agree. He had 3 injuries, at least of note. Maybe he had more because of the way he played, but I had him at 14th just because of the upside from the guys I have just behind him. Like, we know the ceiling of Matt Stafford. He hasn't had a big season in 3 years. Jaden Daniels, rookie. And you could say Richardson's kind of a rookie, only played in 4 games, but he's had 2 years with the Colts, so that makes him a little higher. Aaron Rodgers, he's got more upside. Herbert, more upside. Caleb Williams. So that's why I had him at 14th. Would I do it if he was my number 1? I hope not. But, he would be a guy maybe I use as a backup slot. But I think there's so much potential for him. So that's why I was a little higher than maybe the rest. He's got good weapons, decent offensive line, and there could be a lot of, slide, get out of the way. But there's a lot to like. I mean, just even the 4 games, watching the footage of him, there's something about him that's different. And usually I'm not the upside guy, I'm the safe guy, but there's something about him that stands out. Thoughts on these injured quarterbacks from last year? We talked about those injured quarterbacks. Kirk Cousins Kyler Murray, Joe Burrow. We talked about Joe Burrow, so we're going to take him off the list. So Kirk Cousins, Kyler Murray, Aaron Rodgers. Mikey, who do you want to talk about in those three?
I'll talk about Aaron Rodgers. And he's a douchebag, but you know,
Just like that.
That all being said, I do like the fact that the Jets, made the effort to improve their offensive line.
Yeah.
They got a stellar running back in Brees Hall. Garrett Wilson's going to be a top option. When Aaron Rodgers struggled in that final year in Green Bay, it's because they had taken Devontae Adams away from him, and he was stuck with a bunch of young receivers. Todd says it shouldn't matter, but it does. Now that he's back, and if he's healthy, there's outside chance that Aaron Rodgers could have, a little bit of a rejuvenation, type season and put up some pretty good numbers. So I won't say that I'm high on him, but I think there's a scenario where he can approach top 10.
Oof, goodness. Everything would have to go right.
Mm-hmm.
Everything. Top 10. Ooh. But
so there's a scenario.
Yeah, I mean,
I like it.
I think like 10 quarterbacks would have to get hurt like we saw last year. No, I'm just kidding. Todd, do you want to talk about Aaron Rodgers, or do you want to talk about Kyler Murray or Kirk Cousins?
We'll talk about Kirk Cousins. Obviously going to, first of all, a scenario of him still playing in a dome obviously helps helps the situation too as well. Also, I mean, obviously going from cold to warm climates obviously help a little bit too as well. That's obviously the weapons. He's not, couldn't take Justin Jefferson with him to Atlanta. So he's got Drake London, Kyle Pitts, and obviously Bijan Robinson. That's probably one of selling points that the Falcons told him, like, hey, I know we don't have Justin Jefferson, but look at what Bijan Robinson did, and he can catch the ball out of the backfield as well, and you have a reliable playmaker. So I like the situation Kirk Cousins is in Atlanta.
The question I have, because I don't want to spend too much time on it, and maybe you guys have seen, I mean, he's coming off the Achilles tear, but I have not seen, is he out there practicing? Is he going to be ready for week 1? I haven't seen him put on the PUP lists. That's my major concern is he 100% healthy and ready to go? I would move him up a couple spots if I knew he was going to be 100% healthy. But it doesn't seem like he's being ranked. And obviously these are fantasy football rankings, not real NFL experts and coaches and whatever. But I just have not seen anything about whether he's going to be ready for day 1.
They're probably just being cautious too. I mean, they gave him a lot of money, so they're probably just being cautious, regardless whether they want to say, "Hey, we're just gonna ease him into it," whether it's in practice or whatever the case may be. So maybe some degree they say, no news is good news and so forth. So maybe they're just kind of keeping it. Maybe they don't want to say anything. They're like, well, maybe. He's still not really ready to go, but we don't want to say anything, or he is, and they're just being cautious. That's the thing. If they're just being cautious with him and they want to, really just make sure he's, 100% and fully ready to go for the regular season, and they kind of throw those pillars out there that he'll be ready and he'll be good to go, and you feel comfortable drafting him, then right now, I think you're just kind of in a holding pattern.
Well, yeah, I guess so. I'm assuming you haven't heard anything, Miguel.
No, I haven't heard anything. Like, as far as I know, he's supposed to be ready for the season.
If he's ready by week 1, he moves up 4 spots in my rankings because, I mean, he was the number 1 quarterback. Yes, it's a different offense, but I like his current offense, the offensive coordinator, the weapons he's got. One of the best offensive lines in the league. Playing in a dome always helps, of course. Gosh, there is a stat. I'm going to have to bring it up on the next show, but I would be way up, but I just don't know. I mean, Achilles is a big deal, especially at his age. I think that's really, I have to talk about Kyler Murray. Okay. Kyler Murray, I have no idea what to think. And probably why I have him ranked at 13th. Actually, I have him 12th. Depending on, I have it on 12th on this, and I have him 13th on a different. So I think I have him and Kirk Cousins switched. Anyways, Kyler Murray, we've seen what he's capable of when he's rushing the ball. His numbers increase, which is huge. Passing wise, first off, he's never played a full NFL season. He's never thrown for 4,000 yards, and he's never reached 25 passing touchdowns. Not something that's a recipe for a top 10 quarterback. But if he has those 800 rushing yards and 8 rushing touchdowns, it's going to push his less than stellar passing. It's like Jalen Hurts in some respect. Jalen Hurts is never going to throw for 4,000 yards and 20 or 30, 35 touchdowns. No, it's going to be more 35 to 3,800 yards passing, but 1,000 yards and 10 rushing touchdowns is going to bring him up. And I don't think he'll ever, especially after all the injuries, he's not going to reach 1,000 yards either. He's got an below average offensive line. His weapons are okay. Like, I like James Conner, but he's getting long in the tooth. Trey McBride they brought in. Harrison they brought in. Harrison's a rookie this year. McBride's a rookie this year. That running back they drafted, Benson's a rookie this year. I'm so on the fence. So if I'm on the fence, I'm probably going to try to avoid him. But that's how I feel about him. Anybody want to say something before we get out? Because I think that's the last thing that I have, unless there's someone else you want to talk about.
I mean, again, I'm just more excited just because I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to make Kyler Murray just better in some regard.
Okay, I mean, I get that. He might be the best wide receiver that Murray has ever had, but it's going to take time. And Kyler Murray has dealt with injuries. Can we see another injury kind of hold him back again? And then what is Marvin Harrison going to do for your fantasy team?
Well, he had Hopkins. Would you say Hopkins?
No, you're right. Hopkins is really good. That's my mistake.
No, you're
right. Hopkins is a great player for him. Mikey, any other quarterback you want to talk about before we get out of here? Is there anything that on your list you're like, I can't believe they drafted him this high or this low? I know you're not high on Kyler. You're at 16. But maybe the same reasons I just mentioned.
Well, yeah, it's a lot of it. I just don't see where Kyler Murray's never had that explode type potential that a lot of these other quarterbacks do, and so I don't. He's all good. I just
talk about Trevor Lawrence for me, because you were the highest of us. You had him 6th, Todd 15th, me 10th. So what is it about Trevor Lawrence going into this season that you have him as a top 6 quarterback?
I've been waiting for this breakout season to happen, so
if it's ever going to be, it's going to be this year. It's got to be now.
It's got to be and honestly, he was pretty good last year. His problem has just been turnovers. He is
61 turnovers in his career, by far the most since he started amongst all quarterbacks.
Yeah, he's got to stop fumbling the ball. That is a huge issue. He is such a talented quarterback, and he's used as a runner when they get to the red zone. Hopefully, this is the year I took a chance because he does have upside. That this is the year that he finally gets to it. They are a team that does throw the ball a lot. They have Travis Etienne, but they use him a ton in the passing game. I don't know. This just a shot in the dark. It feels like the year.
I agree. I agree that this is the opportunity. He's got Christian Kirk. They bring over Gabe Davis for those who like Gabe Davis. They used a first-round pick on a wide receiver. You have Ingram. You have Etienne. If he does not put together a full fantasy season, then maybe he never will. He's averaged 23 pass touchdowns the last 2 years. His 4,000-plus yards, great, but his touchdowns have got to come up. There's no reason why he can't succeed. He has a bad offensive line, but he's had a bad offensive line, I feel like, his whole career. I feel like he's been running for his life, and he's been able to deal with that. But, that's obviously a big hindrance as well. Todd, anybody you want to talk about before we get out of here?
No, I think I'm pretty
feel
kosher.
Good. You're pretty high on Lamar Jackson compared to us, but, I think we know at this point why. I'm the lowest on Brock Purdy. He's not the most – he's a great quarterback, but there's so many other weapons, so many rushing. At some point, he's going to hit some sort of adversity, and can he overcome that? He's been great. I can't argue. He's been great, and we'll talk maybe when we talk about sleepers, he might be someone I have on my sleeper list because he was on my sleeper last year, honestly. But.
Well, and two, it just depends on two, and again, this will be in the wide receiver. You know, it is also going to depend on two, depending on what Brandon Ayuk, what his situation is, because he's asked for a trade, and Ayuk's a big weapon too, as well. So it'll be interesting if he doesn't get a new deal, but still, I mean, obviously, if he plays it out, obviously going back to playing for a contract, it would be fantastic. But if he's like, no, I'm going to sit out, that might might drop Brock Purdy for me a little bit, because Ayuk had some big plays, and you can put him all over the field as well, and so forth. I mean, you still have McCaffrey and Debo, but Debo is always injury prone too, so you got to be careful with that. So it'll be interesting. But when we get to that one, we'll cross that path when we get there.
And George Kittle's been injury prone. And the thing that I'll say last thing about Brock Purdy is that he had one game of 25 or more completions. He's had 9 games under 20. He's not a big completion guy. He's very touchdown dependent. But he's had the weapons to be touchdowns, and touchdowns are important. But if you're talking about our league where completions, he had 308, which was, I don't know if I put that here, but it didn't rank amongst the top 15.
No.
So that's always the issue with him. But if you can throw for touchdowns, why does completions matter as much? But so there you have it. I don't know if we got to every quarterback that we wanted to get to here this season, but there you go. Quarterbacks. This is trying to hit the button for the music. There you go. Nope. See, there it goes. So I'm going to have to do something.
Not even close. I was going to say, we didn't talk about Bo Nix.
Yeah, we didn't need to talk about Bo Nix because he should not be drafted in our league. Todd, what's coming up on the show next week?
We're going to talk about some running backs. Our running backs still a dime a dozen. We'll be right back.
I'm going to challenge you. Here's my challenge for you on next week's show. You can't say dime a dozen.
Okay.
You can't say it. You say it, I'm going to dock you a draft pick.
I'm going to dock him a draft pick if Aaron Jones is in his top 10.
Oh, it is based on the way he's talked about him already. But we'll save that for next week's show. We're over an hour. If you're still listening, you're a true fan. We appreciate you. A lot of quarterback talk. Hopefully we'll try to be a little more efficient as we go forward because there's a lot more running backs and a lot more wide receivers. So for Mikey Renault, Todd Diamond, I'm Eric Lansing. We'll see you next time on the MHA Podcast.